There was a study where they were recruiting people to just sit quietly in a room to do nothing else for 15 minutes. And as part of the recruitment process, of course, there were people who had to fill out assessment forms and all that. And essentially, the participants that they selected, 100% of which decided or suggested that they would pay so that they would not be harmed physically, shocked, whatever it might be. So they would pay not to be shocked in this case. Now then, when they brought the people into this study, into this room, I think it was in 2014, the purpose of the study was to sit there quietly for 15 minutes, do nothing. There was nothing, absolutely nothing in the room, but they did leave on the desk this little device that would shock you. It would be like a little mild shock, enough to sort of be a little bit of a deterrent, but also not something that would harm people. And they found that with these participants in the room, that about I think it was like 67% of males decided to shock themselves. Some of them multiple times. One participant who was actually removed from the study after a while shocked himself 190 times in this 15 minutes. And then on the female side, about 25% of people ended up pressing or shocking themselves. The researchers asked themselves, like, why would this happen? Like, why couldn't some people just sit there quietly for 15 minutes, just think or just stay quiet in a sense and not do anything? Especially if this thing that you're doing is harming you in some way. It's slightly uncomfortable or whatever it might be. And they came to the conclusion that I think most humans rather do than think. And I think this is pretty intuitive after you think about it some time, and you start to realize that it's hard to just sit there alone sometimes on your own with your thoughts. And this is probably why so many people have trouble with meditation and that kind of thing. But I would still urge that there is some benefit to actually, there's a lot of benefit from meditation, sitting quietly, those kinds of practices, because we need to be able to turn down our body, turn down our systems. And if we're always in this like slow level of almost anxiety where we're buzzing in a sense and we're ready and alert and almost afraid because of the world around us gives us so much stimulation, it's important that we don't burn out, and it's very likely that we will if we don't turn this down. Now, they hypothesize that it might be some sort of an evolutionary thing that we rather do than think, and maybe men more than women, but the problem is that, again, how does this relate to you? I want to start having you thinking about how can you turn down. It's good that you would turn up, do exercise, that kind of thing. How do we turn down? Because it's important to have that yin and that yang, the balance. Because if we're always constantly up, what ends up happening is a lot of our body starts to get into this high alert. It's less likely to do the things that we might like. Let's say if we want to lose body fat, it's less likely. Your heart rate won't perform as well. Your health, all these factors start to, your blood pressure might get elevated. So there's things that become maybe dysfunctional if we're constantly in this like high stress, maybe even low capacity, in the sense we can't pick it up, but we are actually very high in terms of how we're buzzing. So let's find ways to start to bring it down. Things like breathing practices, meditation, prayer, gratitude, journaling, whatever it might be, sitting quietly, recovery baths, that sort of thing, some self-care. It's very important. It's often overlooked because we don't find it productive. I am guilty of this, but the more and more that we see, the more that we realize that it's important to bring that thing down, so that we're not those people, that one guy that in that study was buzzing himself 190 times in 15 minutes. So rather than focusing so much on the doing over than thinking, maybe let's start to do things to wind down, to turn down our system, to give us a little bit more of a balance. That way we can come back up again when it's time.